Hey friends, Cherie here. Welcome back to the channel. We're here for Vlogmas Day 7. Today I'm here to share with you all 5 sewing patterns that I think sew up beautifully using Quilter's cottons. And today's focus is going to be on dress patterns. If you caught my, Day 5 Vlogmas video. So 2 days ago, I put up a video where I talked about some woven tops that I think would sew up beautifully using Quilter's cottons. And I gave you a little bit of the, my background in sewing apparel with Quilter's cotton. In today's video, we're gonna focus on dress patterns. I'm wearing a dress today that I made with some really gorgeous fabric from the K Facet Collective. I think this was from the August 2024 collection. I can't remember exactly, but I know I do have some of this fabric still available because I bought a couple bolts of this. So I will try to remember to link to this specific fabric in the description box, in addition to obviously having my shop link if anybody wants to look around. But I've made so many dresses over the years, and even especially recently, that I want to share with you all, probably on but I'm probably going to save that for a future Vlogmas video because I want to show you the actual dresses. Today we're just here to look at some patterns. 2 of them I've made. 3 of them I have not made, but they are on my to make list for spring, summer 2026. So I'm going to give you a sneak peek of those. I haven't selected the exact fabric that I want to use. The 2 that I've already made, I will probably remake them. And this dress that I'm wearing here, we're going to talk about this in a separate video. I think I've made this 7 times with all kinds of variations of the sleeve, of the hemline. I'm going to try to insert a picture of this at the end of this video so you can see here. I have a really wide ruffle hem on here, which makes this really a very fun dress. I think the pictures that I have to insert are actually on a mannequin. I also have photos of the other dress that I've already made, and I'm going to insert those. I'm going to pull her out too because I do have her right there just to show you. But anyway, let's first get the camera turned around and look at these 5 patterns that I'm going to share today. And then, yeah, we'll probably have some photos, a little photo show at the end, all right? All right, so the first pattern recommendation I have here is Mccalls 7537. I've never made this dress, and I've had it on my to-do list several times and ended up not making it. I am particularly fond of View C. I really want to make that for my spring and summer wardrobe. I mean, the one with the sleeves is really pretty too. The longer one is really pretty, but something about the contrasting fabric on View C, like using 2 different prints with contrast, I don't know, I think that's so pretty. So I'm going to put this on my list. I might even pull fabric right after I record this video because I really, really want to make this. So if we look here at the back, this pattern goes in the size range from a size 6 to a size 22. And down here, here are the finished garment measurements. You can look at those to help you figure out the best size for you to make. And especially if you need to lengthen or shorten any of the pattern pieces to accommodate your height. Here are the line drawings. And you can see here, this is the view that I'm particularly fond of. You see, so you can see the contrasts of fabric that are being used throughout a little bit better there. But I just think that is so pretty. I mean, they're all beautiful. You can see the cinched in waistline, the gathering along the bust line and at that back waist. I just think this is so, so pretty. And so let's see, it looks like this is from 2027. So I'm sure you can probably find this pattern still on simplicity.com website or on Etsy, eBay, or maybe even at your local fabric shop. Let's see what we're going to look at next. Okay, next we'll look here at the fabric suggestions. It says here cotton blends, challis, doby, satines, and then for version B, you can use some shears, and then you need lining fabric for that View B also. If we go up here and just look at the description, it says this is a semi-fitted dress with a side zipper, gathered or straight midriff gathered skirt, neckline, and sleeve variations. View B will need some cording. View C has that contrast armhole band, upper midriff, and hem back, and contrast front and back band and lower midriff. That's the one I want to make. Then view D, you see here you're going to need some cording, eyelets, and grosgrain trim. Now let's get into the nitty gritties here of the pattern fabric consumption. So it looks here, let's see, view C should use the least amount of fabric. Let me see. Yeah, because it doesn't have the sleeves. View A, view C, let's look at those two. So you're going to need anywhere from 2 1/4 yards of fabric, depending on the size and the width of your fabric, all the way up to 4 yards, okay? So your yardage is, you know, as always, just going to depend on your size as well as the width of your fabric. So that's not too bad. And especially given how this pattern is put together, I mean, you can mix and match yardage, honestly, for all of these, right? I mean, who's to say that you can't use a different fabric for your sleeves, for that neckline on the other versions? I mean, you totally can. And so you could use up some odd scraps and have kind of like a, it's not like a patchwork in the sense of like squares and things like that, but it could be very artistically pieced, patchwork pieced, right? Using up bits of fabric. I think that could be lovely, especially if you have chunks from the same collection. You know, you can use up the prints from those collections to mix and match and make sure that your colors are going to match if that's your thing. I mean, you can have it as contrasting or as coordinated as you want, right? And so, yeah, I think this is just a really beautiful dress and could sew up so well. I have some, of course, K-Facet collective prints in my head that I'm thinking about would be beautiful. But I also got in, I've mentioned a couple times, a couple of new collections for spring. Probably not going to get them onto the website until over the break, so that they're there for the new year. But you guys are going to get a sneak peek of them at some point in Vlogmas. So there's a collection that I think would just be so perfect for making view C. So again, here are the line drawings on the directions insert, and we'll just open it up real quick. Let me see here if it gives you a rating on the outside of this pattern. I don't see any, but I might be missing it. But I would rate this definitely as an intermediate, only because of the piecing and the gathering that you have to do for fitting to get a good fit, right? You're going to have to just spend a little bit more time, probably, unless you're just all straight, you know, you can make it just straight from the pattern. But this is that kind of top, especially for me, where I need to like try on the bodice and adjust the gathering and just making sure that all that kind of fits the way I want it to fit. You know, you might have to do a full bust adjustment on some of these pattern pieces if your cup size is larger than a C. So there might be things that you need to do to get a really good fit, depending on your size, depending on your measurements. And then, of course, depending on if you're piecing things together, you can take a little bit more time cutting, you know, out your pattern pieces and things like that. And then the other part is that you have to put in that side zipper. And so, you know, it's not a zipper where it's just going straight up the back. If I'm looking at this correctly. So you're going to have kind of like you're going to have to put that zipper in on kind of a curve. And so again, just so it's not like botched up looking, wonky looking, that's just something that you might need to take a bit more time. And it's just a lot of steps. I mean, it's a lot more pieces. It's just a lot more steps that you have to put together. All right. So I would definitely rate this as an advanced beginner, really leaning into more of an intermediate sewer. And then look here, I might even add ruffles onto my view, especially if you do this like with all the lacing and the eyelets. I mean, yeah, it'll take you a little bit more time. And again, it's okay. I mean, if it takes you a long time, you know, somebody who's really an advanced sewist might be able to whip something like this together in a few hours. If you have the skill set and you just need to work slower and get it done beautifully. See, here's that where you put in that side zip. So your zipper is going to span from the underarm down through the waist, down into the skirt portion. And so that just might be a new way of putting in a zipper. I mean, it's not super, super curved, but it's not as straightforward as putting in a zipper in like a flat pouch or, you know, the back of a dress that's flat. And so, yeah. And again, like I said, depending on the view, especially if you get into view D, it's just a lot more. Is that view D? Yeah, view D has the eyelets and all that going on. And view B gets a little bit more intricate as well with the eyelets, the front, and the ruffles. All right. So we're not going to, again, it's not a sewing tutorial. It's just kind of a preview. Try to help you see if this is a project that you would feel confident in tackling based on your fabric requirements and some of the skills that you would need to make the dresses. And so I would definitely start with A or C. You know, start with A where it's all the same fabric. C, I mean, that's not that much difference. I would start with A or C, you know, if you're kind of new to making this kind of apparel, and then work your way up to something like that with the eyelets. And again, it's not that they're hard, but you need more equipment, you know, because you need the equipment to put the eyelets in. You could do eyelet buttonholes if your machine, like my machine, has a beautiful eyelet buttonhole stitch. You could do that. But yeah. All right, that's enough of this. You can see I love this pattern. I've been wanting to make it. And so this has convinced me looking through this. I had never even really opened it up to look at the directions, but I'm ready to tackle this. So again, this is Mccalls 7537. Okay, the next pattern I'm going to suggest gives off very similar vibes. This is Mccalls 7624. And again, it has lots of different variations, something for everybody's style. You got the short sleeveless version. You got the short with the wide raglan sleeve. You got this little shoulder action going on here with the long sleeve and the long skirt. And then you have view D here that has that raglan sleeve, but also the long skirt. My two favorites are view D and view C. And so when I make this, I will make either or both of those versions. Here's the back of the envelope, and you can see, this is just a great, you know, wear anywhere kind of summer, spring, summer, or even fall with the long sleeve dress. And you can see here, the copyright is 2017. So that's probably when this was released. But again, search up Mccalls 7624. And if you're interested in it, hopefully you can find the pattern in your size. It comes in a size range of 6 through 22. And again, here's where I recommend you look to help figure out the size that you want to make. This is a dress, and the previous one too, we'll talk a bit more. But when I have dresses like this that have a full skirt, I typically go with my bust measurement as the main indicator, because I already know I'm going to have enough ease or flow in the bottom. And if I go with my hip measurements, the top is going to be too big. Now, you know, if you know how to do grading like I do, you can grade from the top down through the bottom and, you know, go from a smaller size to a larger size or vice versa, depending on your body shape. But this is a dress where I wouldn't even bother doing that. I would just make it to fit my bodice, because I can already see it, especially when I open up the pattern pieces. And even just looking at the finished garment measurements, you can see how wide that skirt is at the lower edge. Even on the smaller size, it's almost 60 inches wide. So this is a very full skirt. And so I'm going to be, you know, fine with making it fit my bodice. And that's usually going to give me the best fit and the best look if I sew a pattern like this. We have another one coming up next where depending on the version that I would make, I would probably need to grade between 2 different sizes to get the fit that I, would need based on my body shape. Okay? So anyway, that's an extra conversation, but I just wanted to point that out, especially if, again, assuming that some of you listening maybe haven't sewn a lot of garments before. And so if we go up here to the description, again, it says loose fitting pullover dress. So you don't have any closures on this one, which makes it a bit easier. The only reason why I'm going to call this an advanced beginner and not like a true beginner, because of all this kind of, contrast, not trim, but you just have these contrast pieces here that, you got to do some extra piecing basically. So anyway, let's get back to the direct description. It says pullover dresses with front gathers and elastic at the back have sleeve and length variations. B has a contrast overlay. C has contrast bodice and bands. And D has back ties. And so I mentioned to you that I really like views C and D. And I would probably put back ties on both of them if I wanted to. Again, those back ties, you can add to all of them. And so those are the other things to remember too. Just because these are the 4 variations that they're showing you, you could do the short dress with these sleeves because those are going to use the same pattern pieces, right? You can make this long dress version here sleeveless. Well, that's what that would be. And same thing here, right? You could come in here. Well, here it doesn't have much of a sleeve variation. This one only has the length, but you can add that back tie to this one, all right? And you can do the contrast. You can make the top different than the fabric at the bottom like it's doing here, right? You can play around and still kind of make it your own. They're just giving you some suggestions on how to play with the various pattern pieces, okay? And then if we get in here, again, we talked about the size range. The suggested fabrics are cotton lawn. Crepe, challis, crepe de chine. And then for that overlay on view B is lace. And I have some cotton lawns from the Cave Facet and Morris & Co. collection that I'm going to be showing you guys coming up in a couple days. I think is on the list for Vlogmas. But I have some fabrics in that collection that I intend to use to make this. And so I'll be excited to make that up and show you all how that turned out. All right. And so if we look at the fabric requirements, if we look at the smallest size and view C and A are going to use the least amount of fabric. Yeah. So view C, the smallest amount. Yeah, so the smallest amount I see on here is for view A, 2 yards at 60 inches wide. The largest amount I see, and because I'm not counting here in view C because they're using 2 different fabrics to make that dress. So it's not that you only need 1 1/8 yards, right? And so then the largest amount I see on here is 5 3/4 yards. And that's if you are making view D, the long dress with the raglan sleeves, but your fabric is only 44 inches wide. Okay, so you will need more fabric. So that's one of those where, you catch a pretty fabric on clearance or on a deal, and then you can make yourself a beautiful dress. All right. And so, yeah, I think that's all we really need to talk about on the envelope. Let's just have a quick peek at the instruction insert. Okay, so here's again a quick look at the line drawings, and let me see if I can find the section that shows the pattern pieces. Yeah, so you can see here there are a lot more pattern pieces for the different variations, and again, based on that, the piecing involved, here I would consider this an advanced beginner and not a beginner. If these were not all separate pattern pieces, this would definitely be a beginner dress pattern. So I say advanced beginner. And then once you get up into all this here, you know, it gets a little intermediate-ish. All right. So, all right. That's it for that pattern. Let's move on to number 3. Okay, pattern number 3 is Mccalls 7920. And this was the one where I mentioned it. See, if you look at view C and D, because of that shape, because it's fitted through the waist all the way through the hips, this is one where I would have to do some grading because my top is like almost 2 sizes smaller than my bottom, you know, from a pattern perspective. So I need to grade in the curve of my hips and the round of my, you know, behind in order to have the dress fabric lay properly down my body. If I did use B and C, I would have to, A and B, I have to worry less about that because of the fullness of the skirt. And so again, if you're, you know, if you're large busted, you're probably going to need to do a full bust adjustment on all of these tops, right? Because they're definitely not, you know, drafted for full bust. Some patterns will have the variation in the cup sizes. They started doing that a little bit later because, again, yeah, this is a 2019 pattern. So you will sometimes find patterns that have different bust pieces, which is really nice because then you don't have to do the full bust adjustment. You just print out the top according to your cup size. But I don't think this is one of them. We'll see when we look at the pattern pieces. But anyway, Mccalls is rating this as easy. And the quick description, it says here, button front dresses. It says here, button front dresses are semi-fitted through bust with facings and body darts and length, skirt and pocket variations, top stitched pockets, self fabric belt, side seam pockets on view B. And then if we look at the pattern range, again, it's going to go from a 6 to a 22. If you look here at the fabric suggestions, it's suggesting linen, crepe, denim, and twill. But I do think some of the quilters cottons that have kind of a heavier base cotton, again, like some of these ones I'm going to show you later on in Vlogmas, will be a great weight. That would be a very similar weight to like a linen. And so I think that would be great to use to make this dress. All the versions of this dress, I think, was so beautifully in different kinds of cotton, quilters cottons. And then here, if we look here at the, you know, finished garment measurements, that'll be a great guide to help you decide the size. You're going to need some buttons, of course. You're going to need interfacing. And then if we look at the fabric requirements, it looks like you're going to need anywhere from 1.5 yards up to about 3 3/8 yards. Again, depending on your size and the version of the dress that you make, all right? Quick peek here at the pattern, at the line drawings on the instruction insert. And we'll do a quick opening here. I'll just look real quick at the pattern pieces here so you can see, you know, each dress isn't going to have a lot of pattern pieces. You're going to have a front and back bodice that you're going to use for all of them. And then depending on the skirt, you're going to use 2 of the, you know, one of the skirt fronts, one of the back skirt backs. And so that's 4 pieces. And then you'll have your pockets and your belt and your facings. So it's not a lot of pattern pieces per dress. You know, it was like, what, 6, 7 pattern pieces. And you just, as far as skills, I mean, you need to know how to put on your buttons. You will make a belt, which isn't hard. You'll have to know how to insert your pockets, but again, you're going to get the directions for all of that here. Adding on your facing. And looks like the buttons, this doesn't have like a separate button blanket. The buttons are getting, the buttonholes are getting stitched right into that facing that you sew on. And so yeah, a little hem, directions to make your belt. And so, yeah, I would definitely say this is an easy dress pattern. And again, it just depends on how you rate yourself as a beginner, if it's a, intermediate or advanced beginner dress. All right. Okay, so now we're going to look at the first of the two patterns that I'm going to share here that I have actually already sewn. And I've made this several times, and I love this dress. This dress is beautiful in a rayon, like this one here, where it's like, a little flowy, but I have made it in Quilter's cottons. I made it in an Anna Maria Horner cotton fabric that has a little bit heavier body than some of the bases that K-Facet uses. And it still just turned out really, really cute. And so, yeah, I definitely want to make this again. I've only ever made view A, I think. And then I think this fall, I finally made, I made view C, I'm pretty sure. I probably changed it around. I always do little variations. Like I probably made it longer than that. I can't remember. I'm going to share that dress soon. I shared it in a short on my personal sewing channel. And then I really like this kind of like lacy edge on view B. And so I think when I make it again, that's what I'm going to do. That'd be really cute. So again, this is Simplicity 8872. Quick look at the back. You can see what the back looks like. So this is just a pull over the head dress with pockets and just different sleeve, ruffle, and hem variations. And it's super cute. And it's one of those things, like if you don't want to do the ruffle, you can just hem it. And so if the ruffle intimidates you or you're just not a ruffle kind of girl, eliminate it. And then here, if you look at the fabric, well, the description again just says pullover dresses in 3 lengths with sleeve variations. Suggested fabrics are chambray, cotton lawn, cotton types, double georgette, lightweight linen types, shirtings, silky types. B has scallop edge fabrics, or even like a border print would be really cute there. And use the border instead of the scallop as the detail highlight. And then if you look at the notions, of course you need thread. And then it says here you need some single bias tape. I made my own with the same fabric when I made it. You need some elastic. And then depending on the version you're making, you'll need some trim or some cording, pom-pom fringe, things like that, however you want to end up decorating your dress. And then here, if we have a look, this one shows the body measurements. And that smallest size, which is a size 4, has a bust of 29.5 inches and a waist of 22 inches. Then the largest size, which is size 20 on here, has a bust of 42 inches and a waist of 34 inches. So you can use that to help decide what size you want to cut. And then you can come down here and double check the finished garment lengths and widths and all those things as well that correspond to the size that you make. And then I added also ties because I just like a little tie. And so I did that too, like a wraparound built-in belt. And that added a really pretty look. So that's what that dress is all about. All right, let's look at the fabric quantities that you'll use. You'll need anywhere from, looks like 1 7/8 yards all the way up to 4 1/4 yards. Again, depending, or 4 3/4 yards, I'm sorry. And that's for dress B because it's cut on the cross-wide grain. So you need more fabric there to accommodate that. And it's a longer dress. But anyway, yeah, it'll depend on the size you're making as well as the fabric width that you're working with. So here are the pattern insert line drawings. You can see here how it's indicating that it's gathered at the back. So you put that elastic in the back, but not at the front. But you do have some pleating in the front to help the front, not be so boxy. And yeah, really cute. I don't see a rating on the pattern envelope for this, but I definitely would consider this a beginner pattern, but not like, this is your first project. So again, advanced beginner to intermediate, depending on how you, label yourself as a sewist, especially once you get into, you know, doing some of the lace cutout and cutting things on the cross wide grain. And then you have to do ruffles. You're doing, you know, elastic, and especially doing elastic just on that back half of the dress. You're inserting pockets. And so, yeah, here, just the way that you put the elastic in the back. So then here, yeah, this is what I mean here in step 28. Just the way that you put the elastic in the back. You know, it would be a little challenging, probably if it's your first project. I mean, it's certainly doable, but once you've done gathers and you put in elastic and things like that, here you're gathering the lace, for example. And so, yeah, it's definitely, you know, an easy dress to make, mainly, again, because, you know, once you don't have to do a ton of closures and a ton of piecing, you know, it's not going to be difficult. You just, you know, if you have less experience or you're just not as comfortable sewing apparel, you just go slower, take your time, base things together if you need to, so you can, you know, see how it's going to come together before you put in your final stitches and then have to use your seam ripper too much. To have fun and work at the level that you're comfortable at, and then you can, your second project, move up to and add another skill. Okay, that's how you work, and don't get, you know, doing too much and not feeling confident and feeling like you can't do it. And it's like, it's not that you can't do it, you just haven't built that skill set yet, but you will with time and practice and repetition, right? So, all right, let's look at this last pattern. All right, friends, here's the last pattern, and this is actually in my bin, the pattern pieces and the directions, because I've already cut this out again, guys. This is a dress. I've made this dress, I think, 3 times, and I love it. Maybe it's just 2. I know I made it with the swan fabric, and I made it with this floral that I'm going to show you. I may have already shown you. And I've cut it out the 3rd time. Did I make it again? I may have made it another time. I'd have to look in my closet. But anyway, this is Butterick 6758. And this, I love this dress. I made view B all 3 times because I personally love a ruffle. It was really cute like that too. And yeah, let's look at the back. So you can see here it has the buttons at the front, and it has a tie casing in the waist that you pull to cinch in the waist. And then again, I did view B, so I had the ruffle. And so, you know, the fabrics here is rated as easy, and this is easy. Your skill is really, well, you have to do the casing for the tie. It does have pockets, and you have to do the facing at the front and install the buttonholes and buttons. Okay, so it is an easy dress. And then here, if we look at the fabric requirements, it's calling for cotton blends, linen, crepe, challis, and it says unsuitable for obvious diagonals. You're going to need buttons and thread and elastic for your notions. And the pattern comes in size ranges 6 to 22. And down here are the finished garment measurements that you can check to help you decide which size to make. And then if we look at the amount of fabric, you're going to need anywhere from 1 3/4 yards all the way up to 3 1/4 yards of fabric. Again, depending on the size and the variation that you do on the length and the ruffle, all right? And as always, I'm just emphasizing, I don't know if people are skipping around in the video, so I always do want to mention, right, that those fabric requirements are obviously going to depend on the size that you are making, as well as the width of the fabric you are using and the version of the dress you make, all right? All right, so here's that final dress that I talked about. Again, I'm pretty sure I have photos on a mannequin that I will insert, and I'll insert those at the end, you know, after I'm done talking here. But yeah, this is actually, if you look back at Vlogmas day 2 or 3, where I showed that button front shirt, that poet's blouse, this is the same print, just in a different colorway. You see how different it looks? I love this colorway. It was so pretty. I'm gonna flip the camera around one last time and just show you some of the details on this one. And then, yeah, we'll look at a couple more photos, and we'll be talking more about apparel and dresses later on in Vlogmas, all right? Okay, so here is my dress here. Again, this is Butterick 6758. And I just want to show you again, you know, I have a serger, so again, no fancy finishing on the inside here. It's just serged, but you can see here, I got my buttons in. It gives you a nice, generously wide facing, and then you have your buttons added on. I did a contrast thread stitching on my buttons just for fun. And then, you know, here are the pockets. The back is just plain. And then here's the back where I put the casing on top, and it goes all the way around over the sides and then onto the front. And then here's where I have my tie. And so I have this all buttoned up, I just pull my tie to cinch it at my waist. Yeah, and that's the dress. And there's no collar, you know, it's just curved up the front. Really, really cute. Comes together, again, if you're, especially if you have, you know, some experience sewing, comes together really quickly in a couple hours, really. You know, you're at the iron a bit, right? Pressing out things, and then especially like getting your casing done neatly, getting your tie done neatly, right? Doing the buttonholes, but again, my sewing machine does the buttonholes and puts the buttons on for me. And so, yeah, it's not too bad. And again, I'm pretty sure, yeah, I made View B, which, as I showed already, has the ruffle. And again, because this is a casual dress for me, I did go on and top stitch that down because I like top stitching. Yeah. All right, friends. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you back here on the channel again soon. Enjoy the photos. All right. Take good care. Bye.
Do you know I'm looking, and I can't help but smile? Do you know how much I love you? You put my favorite song on, I put my feet up, and we just sing along, and I can't help but feeling just love.